Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk, Production Floor Execution Interface in Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management. My name is Michaela, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this web conference through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. Today's web conference is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. By participating in this session and using Microsoft Teams, your name, email address, phone number, and/or title may be viewable by other session participants. If you do not consent to being part of a recorded session, please disconnect at this time. The recording will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenter or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the event, and there will be some time at the end to answer some questions verbally. Thank you for your patience during this announcement. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Johan Hoffmann, Senior Program Manager. Johan, over to you.
Thank you. Production floor execution interfaces have traditionally been used by workers on the shop floor to manage work assigned to them. From overviews, they can start and report progress on jobs with good and error quantities. They can maybe register breaks or work on indirect activities. Sometimes they also need to retrieve information from instructions and documents. With the increased degree of automation and the ability to consume data from sensors on machines and processes, the workers' tasks are evolving from doing manual work and registrations on the shop floor to use this data to monitor the efficiency of processes and take corrective actions. In this tech talk, I'll show the new production floor execution interface and how it is built to support that evolution. In the coming demos, I'll show you how the supervisor can set up a device to support the work on a new production line. Then I will show you how workers use the production floor execution interface and the different capabilities they have. In the last part of this section, I'll show you how to make different configurations of the production floor execution interface to support different needs on the shop floor. First, let's look at how a production supervisor sets up the device. So imagine that a production supervisor is setting up the device for the first time to support a new production line. Once he logs into the production floor execution interface, he will get a welcome screen. He gets a welcome screen because it's the first time he logs into the device, and that is recognized by the device. You only get this option if you have the role of a production supervisor. So this access is granted by the role of the production supervisor. In the right corner, you can see the configure button. So now the production supervisor needs to make the configuration for the new production line. So he'll select the configure button. The first page that pops up, he will have to choose the configuration to support this line. And the configurations are made in the back end. I made 3 different configurations, and one is an advanced configuration. There's also a simple configuration, and there's also one called default. The default is actually created automatically by the system. If you have not created any configurations in the back end and you set up the device for the first time, then the system will create a configuration called default that represents a normal or default configuration. In this example, I will select the advanced configuration, but I can also select the other ones. So let me take the advanced, and then I select next. The next thing you need to do is to apply the filter for the jobs that you want to see on this device. And these are grouped by production unit. resource group, and resource. And these three, the production unit, resource group, and the resource are dependent. So underneath a production unit, you have certain resource groups, and from a selected resource group, you have certain resources. So you limit your selection if you, for example, select a resource group to only look up the resources within that resource group. In this example, I will select the resource directly. So I can tap that in, and with the little cross, I can delete it. I can also use the glass and then see the list of available resources. And I'll select this. And that actually completes the configuration of this device. And this configuration is remembered each time you log into the device. From a technical standpoint, the reference to this configuration is stored on a cookie on the browser. So this showed you how you configure per device. So what you see here is the login screen. So everywhere you set up the device, you'll see the login screen. In the login screen on the left side, you'll have information about the jobs running in the work cell from which you applied the filter. There's a pie indicating that 42% of the jobs that has been scheduled for this work cell have been completed as of today. There will be a 10-minute refresh of the sign-in page, so these numbers will change. We have 4 jobs that are not started, 1 is stopped, 0 are in progress, and 3 are completed. So let me try to sign in now. So I select the badge ID field, and then I scan in my badge ID as a worker. I'll use 136. So this is a time registration worker that has a badge ID, also configured in the backend. And I select the sign in button. So now I enter the job list for the production floor execution interface. And now I'm using the advanced configuration. So this is how the production floor execution interface looks like with the advanced configuration selected. What you see here is the jobs that are scheduled for the work cell. So here I have 5 jobs. I can see the first job, or the jobs are grouped in a grid in a tab called All Jobs. So the All Jobs tab show all the scheduled jobs for the work cell. It's also indicated the state of the jobs with an icon. The first job has a pause icon. So this is indicating that the job is stopped. The 4 other jobs, they don't have an icon, indicating that they have not yet been started. You can see the production order for which this job belongs. Description of the job. This is a speaker assembly operation. The finished product. It also, if it's a variant, then you'll also see the variant for the product. Then you have the requested quantity. So you schedule this for 10 pieces. You can also see that 10 have already been started, 8 have been completed, 0 scrapped, and 2 are remaining. If I select the job in the list, I can get more detailed information about the job in the below section that popped up once I selected the job. It's what we call the detailed view. So that contains more information about the job. You can see it's a primary operation. Again, the operation name, operation number 10. Also, we attach a picture of the finished product that we are making. It's a process job. When it's scheduled, the from and to date and time. If there's any previous operation, and you can also get information about who is the active employees working on the job. You also have here a pie indicating the completion of the job. So this job has been 80% completed because I already completed 8 out of the 10 that was requested. Let me try to select another job. The next job here in the list, this is not started yet. So I can select this, and then I want to start this job. I can select multi-select in this form, so I can start more than one job. But let's just try to start one job here. I select the job and then select the Start Job button. Now I get to the Start Job dialog. The system is now defaulting the requested quantity as the quantity I want to start. If I want to change that, I can select the field, and I get a numpad where I can change the quantity to something else. For example, 8 pieces. On the right side, I also get information about the status of the job, how many I started, scrap, completed, so on, and also a progress indicator. So let's try to start 8 pieces here. So I start the job. So now you can see the icon changed to a start icon, indicating that this job is now in progress, and I started 8 out of the 10. This job that I just started will appear on a different tab called the Active Job tab. So if I select the Active Job tab, I'll see a list of all the jobs that I have in progress as a user. So now I'm talking about the worker that signed in. It is also indicated in the top with a picture, if you associated a picture to the time and registration worker. So Bill Malone here has 1 job in progress. So now I have 1 job, or Bill Malone has 1 job in progress. If you want to work on a different job, he can select a different job and then select the Start button. Then he will the system will recognize that he's already working on another job, ask him if he wants to stop that or complete it before he starts the next one. But there's also an option to bundle, so he can work on more than 1 job at the same time. He can work on multiple jobs in parallel. If he wants to do that, he needs to select the bundle option. And that is actually indicating that he's adding a job to a bundle of already in progress jobs. Of course, here I can also select change the quantity, and I select the bundle option. So now you can see I have 2 jobs in progress. Still, I have the option to get the default information in the details section below. Now let's try to look at how we report progress on jobs. So if I go to the Active Jobs tab and select one of the jobs, I have the option to report progress on the action on the right side. We call it the right toolbar. I also have the option to report scrap. So reporting good quantities and reporting scraps are separate processes in the production floor execution interface. So let me try to report progress here. Again, I get the numpad. It's automatically there, and then I can report. I need to specify this is not defaulted, so the user have to specify how many good has been completed. Then you need to select after reporting the progress, what should be the status of the job. It's defaulting to in progress, indicating that I'm reporting a partial quantity and I will be reporting more on the job. But I can also set it to stop if I want to stop the job and do something else, or I can select to complete the job and close the job with what I report here. In this example, let's keep it in progress. So I'm reporting 6 pieces. So I've reported 6 pieces, and you can also see that from the active jobs list now. that the 6 has been completed out of the 8 started. Let's say I want to report some scrap. So actually, I'm reporting 1 scrap quantity here. So I'm reporting 1. As you can see here on the tab, in the brackets, it's kind of updating dynamically the quantity I enter. And on the right side, I can select the error cause. Still, I have option to don't apply any, have a blank error cause, and otherwise the 3 fixed one: material, machine, and operator. So I report the scrap. As you can see on the progress indicator, 60% have been completed. So I report my scrap, and you can see now again from the interface that 1 has been scrapped and 6 completed. And then again, I can report progress. Let's say I report 1 good, and I don't want to produce anymore, so I complete the job now. And then select report completed, and the job here now disappears from the list. It has been completed. Let me now try to report progress on the last job, and I report progress on all 10, and then put it in complete state. This job has been completed. Again, in the brackets, in the good quantity, you can see that the number I put in, and then report the progress. So now I don't have any active jobs, and I can go back to my all jobs list. So what more can I do? I select a job here. On the right side, we have on the primary toolbar what we call the right side, and the secondary toolbar to the left. On the primary toolbar, we have actions and buttons that relates to the job that you select, like starting the job, bundle, report progress. We can also view instructions that are associated, and you can associate instructions on different levels, on the finished products, on operations, production order. So let's try. We can see here as the instruction button is highlighted, indicating there's an instruction associated with this job. So I can select the instruction, and I get, in this case, a little diagram that the worker can use to get more information, and they can open. This is a PDF file, so this file can be opened. I can associate more than 1 file to the job, so there could be multiple instructions here. Another option is to open a HoloLens guides. There's a little button at the right called guides. So it's possible to associate HoloLens guides. HoloLens guides are advanced guides, for example, for complex assembly, where you can overlay like a film stream with instructions, and those guides can be built in the HoloLens Guides app and be stored in the HoloLens Guides environment. And then you can make a link to that environment and to those guides and associate them on different levels. And I'll show you some examples of that. So in this case, I can see there's a guide associated with this job. So I can select the guides button. Again, here you can have more than 1 guide associated, and you get a QR code. And if you wear your HoloLens glasses, you can scan this QR code and the guide will open. You can get more instructions, and we have some good YouTube videos showing some examples of how workers can be guided through, for example, complex assemblies. Let me just show you a little bit on how you set up the guides. So I'll go to the client, and I'll log in here. First, I'll go to a page called Guides Integration. In the guides integration, you set up the address to the environment where the guides has been created. So this is just the URL that is pointing to the environment where the guides are stored. So that is the first step. The next step will be to add the guides. And we have a page called All Guides. So this was the guides that I showed you when I opened the guides from the production flow execution interface. As I said, there could be multiple guides. You can add multiple guides and add their names. And then in the below section, you add the guides association. So you can associate the guides to different entities within the app. And just to show you what are the options here, you can associate it to a release product. So that could be, for example, the finished product. So all production orders, all jobs belonging to a finished product that has this guide, then you will be able to open it. It could also be to the route. So all routes, all product using a specific route. In this example, it's a specific resource. So all jobs planned on a specific resource. Could be a resource group, bill of material, route version, very specific. It could be a route operation relation. So that could be for a very specific operation that is only specific for one product. It could also be the BOM version. So you have a lot of granularity and option to set the guides. So once I selected the resource, I also need or the resource or production aspect, as we call it, then you also have to select the resource. And as I, in this example, selected the resource, then let me show you an example of the resource. So I go to the resources. And I select the resource. And here you can see a fast tab. It's called Associated Guide, has been added, where you can add the guide that you need here. And you also have them on all the other entities that are supported, like release products and route operation relations. So that showed you how to set up and use the guides if you want to use that for advanced support. Let's go back to the production flow execution interface. So I showed you some of the options we have on the primary toolbar. On the secondary toolbar, we typically have options that are not directly related to the job. For example, taking a break. If I select that, I get, in this case, two different break types, break from work and break from lunch. Breaks can be flexible defined, and it's part of the time and attendance module. So you can also set up rules, for example, whether a break is paid or non-paid, and also is the basis for calculating the worker's pay. So selecting a break. Now you're on a break. You can also set the system to return to the login screen. So this is like a single user experience. And once you come back, you stop the break. And this break is now recorded in the backend. Another option is to work on indirect activities. So you can select, for example, company meetings, department meetings, so on. Again, the indirect activities are flexible defined, like the breaks. And you can set up these rules, whether they are paid or non-paid and stuff like that. Then you have the leaving option, whether you want to log out, so another user can log in, or clock out for the day. The last thing here I can show you is the filter option. So if you want to change the filter on the job lists, for example, look at a different resource or jobs on a different resource or resource group, you can use the filter option. And that is the same experience I showed you when I showed you how to configure the device. The This filter option is only available if it's explicitly set on the time and registration worker. So on the time and registration worker, there's an option to allow the worker to set the filter. So only available if the worker has this option set. So that could, for example, be a team lead that you kind of give this privilege. Other workers will not have it. So now I showed you kind of the basic operations in the production flow execution interface, how you manage the jobs and get additional information. There's also a tab called My Machine. So we looked at the All Jobs tab, the active jobs for jobs that are in progress by the user, but we also added a tab called My Machine. The My Machine tabs show information about the asset health, or this health of the machine you are working at. You also allows you or gives you the option to for the worker to create a maintenance request or register downtime on the machine. This functionality is mapped to asset management, enterprise asset management in Dynamics 365 supply chain management. And you have an ability, an option, and I'll show you that, to map a resource to a maintenance asset. And that is what we have done here. So in this page, you select the asset on which you want to monitor the asset health and which you want to log your downtime records and your maintenance request. So in this experience, I selected an asset called AK/01. If I select the glass here, I can see that one asset. If I apply the filter, for example, a resource group that contains multiple assets, then I will also see, if I do the mapping of the resources in that resource group to maintenance assets, then I will also see the list of those maintenance assets, and I need to select which asset I want to monitor the asset health. As I only applied the filter for one resource, there's only one asset to look at and select. So let me select this. It is already selected. And to the right of the search bar, there's a little wheel. If I select that, I have the option to select asset counters that are associated this asset that I selected. So those of you who are familiar with asset management know that a maintenance asset, you can connect asset counters, and the asset counters, you can collect the values for those counters. An example of that, let me show you that. So you can select up to 4 counters here. So if I select the glass, I have 4 counters associated the asset, the maintenance asset I've selected. I have one counter called machine hours. So this counter represents how many hours has the machine been running. So for example, through sensor data or through an integration to production orders, is a standard functionality that when you report finish on a production order, then you can get the connected asset counter updated with that value, and then you can track the machine hours on the maintenance asset. And of course, that is part of the asset management functionality, where you can set up your maintenance plan and use the maintenance counter values to plan your maintenance. But let me start selecting the machine hours for the first one. I want to look at the aggregated value of my machine hours. The second one, let's say I want to look at temperature. So maybe temperature of the process or temperature of the machine asset. Here I want to look at the actual value. So in this scenario, you are tracking or logging the temperature on recurrent basis on the asset. The third one could be the pressure. Again, this will make sense to be an actual value. And as the last one, I want to measure frequency. And again, these counters are flexible defined on the asset, so it could be anything with any given unit, whatever you want to track. and then OK. So that gives you then the actual counter values. So it has been running for 10,567 hours, 87 degrees. There's a pressure and there's a frequency on the process. And there's also a timer in this form. So you get the current values updated. So this is an example of using the production flow execution interface as the information hub. So you track, in this case, the state and the health of your machine asset. Looking at the maintenance request, we can see there's some maintenance requests logged for this machine asset. And in this experience, we enable the production floor worker to log maintenance requests. So for example, if something happens that is not normal, something that need to be taken care of, the worker can now log the maintenance request. We made this experience very simple. So pressure is too high, for example, and you can put in the note whatever you want to write and elaborate on this. And then you select OK. So now a maintenance request has been sent. So maintenance request has been generated in the Enterprise Asset Management module. The maintenance worker can see that new maintenance request in this list and take the necessary action. The maintenance request can be turned into a maintenance work order where you can schedule the maintenance on the machine and reserve the capacity for that maintenance work. And the work order has all the checklist and the necessary steps for doing the maintenance. Another thing you can do here is also to register machine downtime. So if the worker experienced downtime on the machine, then the worker can log that downtime very easily. So you select the register downtime button. What you need to do is to provide a reason code, if any. It's not a mandatory field, but there are, you can flexibly define your reason codes in asset management, and here are the reason codes that you can select. So it could be renovation, it could be a breakdown, and it was registered. What I skipped here was, let me go back to the experience. You can also set the date and time on the downtime. So it could, for example, be a scenario where the worker, when the worker ends the shift, the worker will then register the downtime that happened during the shift. You can also edit existing downtime records. So it could also be a scenario where the downtime records are tracked and recorded through sensor data. So the downtime records has a data entity. They have a data entity that you can integrate to, and then insert the downtime records from outside. Maybe the worker is tasked to provide the reason codes for the downtime records recorded by, for example, the machine. So to do that, you can view and edit all the downtime requests. And if you want to edit that, you can edit the downtime. For example, if it's a downtime record without a reason code, then you can add it or adjust the time. In this experience, you can also remove downtime if you did something wrong here. So that showed an example of how we are integrating to the capabilities of asset management and how you can track downtime, maintenance request, and use the asset counter values proactively on the shop floor. So the next thing I want to show you is a little bit more advanced way of reporting on products. So I'll change the filter to a different resource. 5110 is the resource. And I set the filter. So here I have production orders that are not yet started. And just for the example here, I've set them up with different configuration. The first production order is created for a batch enabled item. And this batch enabled item is it's a batch order or a production order with a fixed batch number. So the batch order, you are reporting on a fixed batch number, and the worker should not be able to choose other batch numbers. So this is an example of reporting on a fixed batch number. All these items are also enabled for the advanced warehouse processes. So I'll also talk about how you report on a license plate, because you're reporting to a license plate control location. So let me try to start this job. I'll start 5 pieces. And now I'll try to report progress on this job and select the report progress. Open the report progress dialog. As you can see, the dialog have changed a little bit. New tabs have been added. The first tab is the license plate. I'm reporting to a license plate controlled location. The finished product is enabled for the advanced warehouse processes. So I need a license plate. In this scenario, the license plate is generated from automatically from a number sequence. There's a configuration where you can set up whether you want to generate a license plate when you report progress, or if you want to reuse an existing license plate. So that is kind of a configuration. This configuration is generated automatically. That is also indicated again in the bracket, where you can see the information has been provided with an OK. Then continue. Again, the batch number in the brackets, OK. Actually, I don't need to do anything because the batch number is already there. The reason is that I'm reporting on a fixed batch number. So that should always be the batch number I report, no matter if I'm reporting partial or full quantities. And this is of course also a configuration whether that you're reporting on the fixed batch number and you cannot change it in the UI. This is controlled by what we call the tracking number group, where you set up the rules, these kind of rules, and the batch tracking number group is associated to the product. So I can select continue, and then how many do I want to report? 5 pieces. And then let's say I want to complete this reporting, and then I'm reporting as finished. So I don't have any active jobs now. I go back to my job list. To show you a different configuration, this one is for manually assignment of the batch number. So in this case, the user have to provide the batch number on which the worker is reporting. So again, I'll start the job. Go to the active job page and then report progress. Now the license plate is okay because it was generated from the number sequence. If I go to the batch number, you can see no batch number has been provided. So I need to provide the batch number. So that could actually, for example, be scanned in. So this would be the batch number I will be using. And then again, I enter the quantity, 5 pieces, and I want to complete it. So 2 different configuration of a batch enabled item. I also prepared 2 examples of reporting on a serial controlled items because it has a slightly different user experience. In the first example, we have a finished product that is serial number controlled, and we are reporting on pre-allocated serial numbers. So this production order is for 5 pieces, and 5 serial numbers should be pre-allocated. Again, a setting on the tracking number group for serial numbers. So when you create your production order, 5 serial numbers are pre-allocated by the system. So let me start the job. and then I want to report the progress. Again, the license plate, and then the serial number. And you can see as of now, no serial numbers have been reported. But if I select the glass here, I can see the list of the pre-allocated serial numbers. So I can report them one by one. And as you can see, as I select them here, of course I can complete my, I can make a partial registration of only one serial number, but I can also report more than one serial number at a time. So let me try to report all of them. Of course, I can also scrap a serial number if I want to do that. But let me try to report all of them. In this list, I also have a bin. So if I made a mistake and selected the wrong serial number, then I can remove it from the list and it will be back in the list. So these are the pre-allocated serial numbers. And now you can also see in the serial number brackets, or the brackets here, that I have 5. So if you have a lot of serial numbers, it's maybe nice to see how you're progressing. And then I select OK, and then I do the reporting. So the last example is the manual allocation of serial numbers. So again, I start my my job. It's now active. I select report progress. I need to continue. And then I register my serial numbers. I don't have anything. The list is empty because I didn't pre-allocate. I need to scan them. So this could be the first one. And it's prepared for a scanner. So the cursor will stay active in the field. And then I can mark it as complete, report progress. So that actually completed how you operate, how the worker operate in the production flow execution interface. Before going to show you how you configure the production flow execution interface, I just wanted to show you the integration to asset management that I used in this demo. So I will go to asset management. I will select all assets. And here I have a list of all the assets I have. If I select the first asset and go to the fixed asset tab, you have a field called resource. And it is in this field where you make the connection between the maintenance asset and the machine resource. So that is how when you configure your asset counters and you select the machine assets in the production flow execution interface, that is how it identifies the applicable machine assets to select between. What I also showed you were the counters associated to the asset, and you associate the counters indirectly through the asset type. So this is, in this example, it's an air knife. So if I also have an asset type called air knife, and on this type can of course be associated to many different assets. So that kind of sets the policies for assets. And here you have a fast tab called counters. Here you have all the available counters that you have defined. And here you have the selected counters for this asset type. And they will now also be applicable for this asset because it's using this asset type. Looking at the counter values, you can see that if you select the counters up here, so here you have the counter values that have been recoded for this asset. This is only a demo example, so I only have 4, but of course each time you make a new measurement of a counter value, a recode will be inserted in this table with the date and the current value. So that showed you how you set the how the integration to asset management works. The last thing I want to show you is the configuration of the production flow execution interface. If we go back to the production flow execution interface, I started by setting up the configuration, and I selected a configuration that was named advanced, indicating that this kind of show all the different options you have. Let me try to change to a different configuration. So I log out. As I have full user rights and the rights of the production flow supervisor, I'm able to change the configuration in the login screen. So I'll select that, and then I can select the simple configuration. So let me try to do that. And I set this should be the resource I'll be looking at. And now I will log in again with my badge ID. And now you can see you have a different configuration of the user interface. It is a more simple. We only have one tab. I called it simple. I'll show you that you can actually name these tabs flexible. So these you only see the jobs, both in progress and not started. So this will support a process for example, a simple operation where the only thing you want is to start a job and report progress. You don't want to report scrap. So you just start the job and report progress. And you strip the user interface for all the other actions that you saw before. I also have the option, of course, to leave, log out, or clock out. So let me show you how you make the different configurations for the different needs on the shop floor. So I go back to the menu here, and then I select Configure Production Flow Execution. So I use the search bar above and select Configure Production Flow Execution. Here I have all my configurations, all three. The advanced, the default was generated automatically by the system. If you don't have any configuration and you start configuring, then this is generated behind the scenes with a sensible configuration. And then the simple configuration. If we look at the advanced one, on the general fast tab, you have the different rules for the configuration. For example, you have the rule for generating the license plate from a number sequence that I showed you when reporting to a license plate controlled location. If this is not selected, then the user will have to reuse an existing license plate. And you have other options here. You also have a fast tab called tab selection, and that is actually where you select the tab that you want to show in the UI. So in the advanced configuration, we saw the all jobs tab. We saw the active jobs tab showing jobs that are in progress by the user, and we saw the My Machine tab. And you have the ability to add or remove tabs. You can also change the order of the tabs, so which one should be shown first. And the first one will be the default tab, and you'll see the jobs from that tab when you open the production flow execution interface. If we look at the simple configuration, I only selected a tab that I named simple. In this page, you have a menu item called Design Tabs that will bring you to the page where you design the tabs. So let me try to open that. So here you have 4 tabs that have already been configured. We have if we look at the first one, the active jobs tab that we already looked at. And then we have the All Jobs tab. Let's look at the All Jobs tab. You give it a name. We call it All Jobs, but it's flexible. You can call it what you want. What should be the main view? The main view is the grid where you see the jobs. Should the main view contain all jobs, showing all jobs that have not been started, all jobs not started, started, paused? Or should it only show active jobs, jobs that have been started? Or should it show the My Machine information? In this case, we select all jobs. The details view is the section that popped up in the button when I select a job, showing details about the job. I can select for this tab if I want to see the job details or if I don't want to see it. If I, for example, select the Simple tab, the details view have a blank value, indicating that I'm not showing anything when I select a job. Then this details part will not pop up automatically, or it will not pop up. Then we have the primary toolbar that you can configure and the secondary toolbar. The primary toolbar, here you configure the buttons and actions you want to see in the right side of the production flow execution interface. So these are typically actions that are related to the jobs that you have in focus or have selected. So if we select the All Jobs tab, we selected the option to start a job, to bundle a job, to show instruction, and to show guides. And here are the available actions that you can select. On the secondary toolbar, it's the toolbar, vertical toolbar to the left of your job list. We selected break, indirect activity, you can leave, and you can set the filter. Here we have all the other available actions. If we look at the My Machine tab, we have request maintenance and request downtime. And we also selected some option on the secondary toolbar. So once you have selected these or created the tabs, then you can add them to the configuration. And that actually controls the user experience for a selected configuration. The very last thing I want to show you here is the option that we added to sanitize the login screen. So especially in the COVID situation, you need to keep all your equipment and devices clean if people, for example, use them as touch. So many companies have strict rules of recurring cleaning. Some feedback we got then when you start cleaning the screen, then you might touch a button, something that you don't want. So you need to be careful not to swipe away from the screen or make kind of unintentional actions. So we added an option to lock the screen during sanitation of the screen. So if you want to sanitize it, you can select the sanitize option, and then it's locked for a defined number of seconds. And while it's locked, you can do the cleaning. This is something you can set in the configuration part, whether you want to have this option. And you can, if you select it, you can also set the number of seconds that it should be locked during sanitation. So let's just quickly walk through the key takeaways of this section. We saw how you set up the device, and the configuration is set up per device. And you set up the configuration to support different needs on the production floor. Different work cells, different production line might have different needs for configuration. So that is set up per device by the production supervisor. So examples of how you report on license plate, batch number, and serial numbers, and all the different options you have. We saw how workers can get help from HoloLens guides and also instructions. and then an overview of machine health for a selected machine asset with the help of with the use of asset counters. And we empowered the worker to log maintenance requests and register downtime. And then we saw how the user interface can be configured to meet the different needs on the shop floor. All the functionality you saw here is enabled through feature management, and all these it's a compilation of many features that are now in public preview in the 10.0.17 release. We will share this slide deck with you, so here you can see what are the features you need to enable to try out and use the functionality that I showed in this demo. And then there's also a link to the different resources. So if you want to try this out yourself, we have documented this in our Microsoft Docs repository. And it's written in these 4 articles, from setting up the device and configure the user interface and use the HoloLens guides. And there's actually much more information, tips and tricks that you can read on this. So with that said, I want to thank you everybody for letting me present this, and all your feedback is highly appreciated. Thank you very much.
So, Johan, 2 of the questions coming in online, and maybe we can take it our voice.
Yes.
The first question is, how is rework handled?
Yeah. So as of now, the rework scenario is not supported in the production floor execution interface. So you'll need to, if you want to rework something, you'll need to report it as finished, and then set up the process for reporting whatever you reported as finished from the device. We don't have any dedicated functionality on this in the production floor execution interface. For example, yeah.
The second question is it possible to assign an asset to multiple resources or resource groups?
Yes, that is possible, yes.
And there's another question coming in. Anything on direct and indirect labor hours?
Yeah, so what you saw there was we have the option to register on indirect activities that will kind of that is representing indirect time. So this is time that is not recorded directly on the production orders. All this time is of course collected in the back end and is the basis for workers' pay and the workers' pay calculation based on their time profiles and pay agreements. From a costing perspective, of course, you can set up indirect cost in the costing setup of your resources and operations, and in the cost categories. Other questions? Abhishek, do you have other questions?
No, we don't.
Okay, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like there are no more questions. There is a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We value your feedback and welcome your input on how we did today and what you would like to see in future sessions. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. A huge thank you again to our presenter and to all of you for logging in and joining us today. Please stay safe and have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you are.